Hey guys, as you know, every 50 hours on your RockShox Zeb or Lyrik or a fork with an RC damper, you're supposed to service the lowers. And that process goes pretty smoothly and easily. But every 200 hours, you're supposed to service the damper. And man, that's a whole different process. It's much more complicated. Fortunately, there's some great videos that walk you through the process. But what I've found is that the videos and the SRAM manual are not very clear about how to put the suspension fluid back into the damper. So what I've done, I've prepared a video showing how I get the suspension fluid back into an RC RockShox Charger 3 damper. So let's get into it. Now I'm going to start the process right here with the fork where I've removed the lower, and I'm just showing removing the damper shaft so everybody's clear about, or the damper cartridge clear what I'm talking about. And I've got it out of the bike. This has already been completely disassembled. Most of the oil's out of it. It's just been hand tightened. I'm going to disassemble it here so you can see what I've done and then refill it. To make sure we're all on the same place though, I want to have consistent terminology throughout this video. And here I'm showing the damper shaft I just removed. The section in red I'm calling the cartridge tube. The section in blue I'm calling the damper tube. And the section in orange I'm calling the damper shaft. Now here's another diagram that's out of the SRAM manual that I think shows some important stuff to be aware of in what we're doing here. This is mainly the upper part of the damper, and it's showing the assembly all around the internal floating piston, or the IFP. So here I'm just showing disassembling the damper assembly just for completeness. All the fluid's out, it's already been disassembled, it's just been hand tightened, so I'm taking it all the way apart here. But now that I've gotten to the cartridge tube, this is a very important part in the refill process, and you need to spend a little time and really look closely at this to make sure you understand before you start putting fluid in it. Now the white thing in the picture there is the IFP, or internal floating piston. There's a shaft coming out from part of the assembly there, and that shaft on one end has some little holes in it. And what you want to do, you want to make sure that those holes are on the top side of the IFP. And what I'm showing here, I just showed that I pointed to those holes, and now I'm pushing the shaft through the IFP. So those little holes at the top of that shaft are on the other side of the IFP. Now that'll create a little cavity in there, and you're going to put suspension fluid in that cavity. If those holes are on the wrong side, when you fill it up, the suspension fluid will go into those holes and drip through, and you don't want that. So here I'm going to show with my syringe inserting the suspension fluid, and what I'm going to do is go in and just insert the suspension fluid down in that cavity. You want to get it as full as you can with suspension fluid. Once you get it as full as you can with the syringe, then you want to push the little the little mechanism down. Don't let the piston move, but just push it down, and then you want to go in on top of that and put suspension fluid. It's very important that this cartridge tube assembly be completely full of suspension fluid. And here I'm just putting the suspension fluid over the top of it, getting it as full as I can for the next step. Once I get that, then I'm just going to look at it, make sure it's not leaking. If it's leaking, you got a problem, start over, it shouldn't leak. And then I'm going to install the damper tube on that cartridge tube. And fluid should come out, that's what you want. And in this part of the process, I'm only hand tightening. If you're doing this for real, then you need to tighten it, to torque spec. But I'm not doing that here, I'm just tightening it. Once you get it tight, double check there's no fluid in that top part and it's not leaking. And then what you want to do is install it upside down in a vise. And now we're going to take suspension fluid and fill up the damper tube. And once again, it's very important to have this completely full and as free of bubbles as you can before you start. So I'm just filling up the damper tube with suspension fluid, getting it as as full as I can. You don't have to fill it all the way to the top, but pretty close to the top. You don't want, when all this is put together, you want there to be no gaps in it. So I've got it, full. I just tapped it to make sure the big bubbles were gone, and now I'm going to insert the damper shaft down into the damper tube. And once again, as you're doing this, suspension fluid should come out. That's a good thing. That's what you want. And again, I'm just hand tightening it here. I am going to use a tool just to put a little bit of tightness on it. But basically, you want it, when you're doing it for real, get it, at your spec. But here, just for this purpose, I'm just going to get it tight enough so I can show you the next phase of the process. Get everything on there, get it tightened down, and once you get it tightened down on there, the fluid, all the fluid should be in the damper, and so that part is done. And now, what you've got to do is reinstall the IFP spring and the top cap, and it's very easy to cross thread or damage the threads in this process. But it is sort of a violent, hard process. I'll show you here. In this particular case, I had some trouble. I'm showing it in the film just so you can see what I did. I've sped it up, but normally I was able to do this no problem with the vise, but I tried several times, never could really get it on there. Ultimately, what's going to happen is I'm going to actually take it out of the vise and push it together with both hands and tighten it down. Once again, be very careful here. I finally, am really struggling with this here, but eventually I take it out of the vise and get it all lined up, and getting it lined up is important. And then get it, twisted in and tightened up, on the cartridge tube. Once again, a difficult part of the process. And we're doing all this just to get the fluid in there, by the way. So once I get it on there, then I want to put the damper back in the vise. And now what we're going to do is just, press in the damper shaft, listening for any air in there. There are instructions. You're not supposed to push this all the way down. I have mine marked as to how far I'm supposed to push it. I'm going to push it and cycle it around, a couple of times. And once again, I'm listening for air. There's I have my thumb on a little bleed port, and I just have my thumb to make sure no fluid comes flying out of that bleed port. The shaft should come down relatively quickly on its own because that spring's pushing it. Mine seems to be working fine. What I do is I go back and forth a couple of times, and then I go stress test it a little bit, push it just a little bit, and get it just like I want it. But mine seems to be working fine. Now at this point, the damper has been successfully filled. And you would stop here, make sure it's all tight spec, clean it up, put it on your fork, and you're ready to go. But I'm going to show you how I checked for air, that is for a bad refill, because I had to do this, 5 or 6 times just to make sure I fully understood and learned how to do it. And the way I would test is I would go through the process I'm going to show you here to test to see if I did the refill correctly, because what you're looking for is cavitation in that oil. So I'm going to remove the top cartridge tube. First I'm going to take the spring out. Once I get the spring assembly out, then I'm going to just screw off the cartridge tube. And what I want to do is look down in the fluid you can see on the top of that damper tube and make sure there's not cavitation. And cavitation would be the fluid mixed with small air bubbles. So I'm going to take it off and look down here, and in this process you can see the fluid is completely free of air bubbles. So I think I've got a good install. So my process, I think, works very well. That's how you successfully put the suspension fluid in one of these dampers. I hope I've given you something to think about, and I'll see you at the top.